Good morning, John. Thank you for taking some time out and getting involved in our business owner spotlight. Would you like to go ahead, introduce yourself, and tell us all about your business?
Hi, Scott. Yes, the name John Doyle. I'm owner and managing director of a company called John J Doyle. We're based in Duncrew in Belfast.
And go ahead, tell us, John, how long has that company been in business for?
Well, we're almost virtually 100 years old in the next couple of years. So we're about between 1926 and 28, according to various different. We'll keep meaning to go round to the company records office and dig out the exact date, and we need to do it fairly soon. But
Yeah.
yeah, it started by my grandfather, and originally, so the original business would have been called refractory engineering. So that would have been involved furnace linings in really to do with heavy industry, furnaces, boilers, incinerators, power plants, power stations. That was our core business. And back in those days, you would have had Harna Wolf, Shorts,
Yeah.
steel industry, Mackey's, Sirocco, the linen industry, all had massive boilers. Harna Wolf had massive ships and furnaces within Harna Wolf that we would have had to maintain and repair.
So, nearly 100 years old. You're just coming out of that startup phase then. But what you described there was a very different business landscape. So, who would be your ideal customer now? In 2024, who would you most like to talk to, or who do you do the most business with?
Oh, well, the world has changed dramatically for us. So the refractory side of our business, while it's still there, and we're probably perceived as one of the experts, certainly probably in the UK or and Ireland, uh, but it's a very small part of our business. We diversified really just, I guess, with no choice. So nowadays we're involved. The business is really mainly split in two between commercial chimney and flue systems, and that would be supplying and installing products going off boiler systems and that are generators. That would be data centers, schools, colleges, offices, that sort of thing. And then the other side to it, the other half of the business, we supply to the retail stove and fireplace industry throughout Ireland and across the UK as well. And that would be typically fireplaces, stoves, all the flue components that come off those sorts of products. And that was, I guess, if I went back, that was a journey that we almost, well, we had no choice because, well, what actually happened initially was when I came into the business, my timing wasn't great. Industry was leaving in the early 80s at a fast rate of knots, and all the factories were closing down. We uh, we then, well, we had 81, the hunger strikers, and Bobby Sands died in at Easter 81. I'll never forget it because because we got bombed out of where we were. We lost all our vehicles, and we had to basically move overnight, a bit of a hurry, and we moved out to Lisburn, and we spent the next 7 years out there, and eventually came back to Belfast. We then we looked at the business, and we were struggling, really struggling badly because our client base wasn't there anymore, and we had that fateful call from the bank to come and see them, and we had about six senior managers all around the table and asking us lots of questions on all about survival and could we survive. And our only saving grace is we owed them a significant amount of money, but
Okay.
that we had no personal guarantees or no the assets that the building itself wasn't in their name. So we uh, we had that moment in time where do we wrap it up or do we commit to the bank, and we decided that yeah, look, let's give it a go. They then supported us for a period of time. We then gave them the title deeds of the building, and that secured us for a while. And then I guess we just reinvented ourselves. We tied up. Well, my father died. What about I guess 30 years ago now. So around the same time, 95, I met up with a Spanish company, and we had a in the old days we would have done a lot of the industrial chimneys, which would have been brick, and then they evolved into concrete, and then they became steel. And I met up with a Spanish chimney manufacturer 30 years ago, and we became their sole distributor in Ireland. And I guess within, funny, as luck would have it, a number of years later, we eventually became their largest independent company in Europe. And we would, this year or last year, certainly we gave them over £1 million. So it's been a good success story for both parties.
There's a lot fascinating story, John, and a lot to unpack there. But one of the things you said was, I guess we just reinvented ourselves, which nobody just reinvents themselves. You know, that's a huge undertaking. And you said, you know, you've basically went from big industry, refractionary, you know, Harlan and Wolf, that sort of thing, to now one of your main customers would be data centers. What does it actually take? What have you had to go through from a mindset perspective to make that change and reinvent yourself?
Well, I would love to say it was sitting down and planning it all out, but it was back then it was purely survival.
Yeah.
That was it in a nutshell. It was all about survival. The When I sat around the boardroom table in the Ulster Bank in Rosemary Street at the time, I had this particular difficult bank manager who was prodding away, and he said to me, "Mr. Doyle," he says, "your business is based on industry." He says, "You're like the without industry, there's obviously no hope your business to survive." And I don't know where it came from, but I replied, I said, "Look, we're not like the shop on the corner when all the houses disappear. It has to go as well. We have knowledge of 70 years, and we can take that anywhere in the world." And that sort of, I think, they saw something in us then that we could do something with the business. And so the like of data centers is, there's two sides to our business. On the data center side, we can offer, so for a data center to function, it can't have a power cut. If it has a power cut, it loses everything that's
Sure.
inside there. So they all have standby generators, and if you've got 30 generators all running on diesel, and you fire them up all at the one time at low level, everybody's going to get choked. So they need a flue system to take it to high level and release the fumes to atmosphere. So, and if it's not that, then it'll be a system called an SCR, which is it's a bit like a it's your ad blue in your car, just on a larger
Sure.
scale. So that we offer both options. So and we did Madrid and Milan in the past year. We're involved in multiple projects throughout Europe. A lot of jobs priced at the minute that we're hoping to be successful, certainly in some of them. And data centers for us is a massive, massive opportunity.
So you talked about you know, I'm just keen to explore this mindset. And I appreciate it was about survival, but you've taken that same mindset and then now you're at the forefront of you know, the latest technology in essence. And you know, what was the lesson from, you know, going from you know, having your back against the wall? What was that lesson that you've taken forward to say, look, we've got knowledge, we can take it anywhere in the world? What was the biggest lesson you learned from coming out of that difficult time that you've taken forward with you?
I think without a doubt, and with no disrespect probably to the previous generation, to my father, that they probably just assumed that it would be there forever. And that's the one learning curve of all, I think, is that businesses change and industry changes and technology changes. So never sit there and assume it's always going to be there.
Yeah.
Just assume it nearly won't be, and what's going to happen next. So in a way, I view what we do, I mean, as half a business now is uh, retail fireplace shops that are have a very difficult time against the internet, and even the fact that we supply hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds of electric fires. The technology in those electric fires is changing rapidly, and it's a bit like, I refer to it as musical chairs. When you were a kid, that somebody's going to pull that chair away, so
Yeah.
you just need to adapt all the time. So we would have a lot of strategic meetings internally in the business to say, okay, what are we doing next? And try and build a business that you are doing multiple things. You're not just doing one, because if you
Yeah.
do one thing, and as it happened with us, it nearly killed us. It nearly stopped everything.
Yeah. So that's kind of cool. So, just like always have a chair when the music stops then.
Exactly.
And you said at the start, it wasn't about you wish you could put it down to planning, but obviously there's a lot more strategic planning goes into having a chair when the music stops now that you've moved out of that survival mode.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, without a doubt, without a doubt. I mean, I guess what we do with a lot of as a business now, that we have processes for everything.
Yes.
Uh, Everything we do, and we have, sales. Again, things that I remember sort of my number two said to me one day, I think we need a warehouse manager. And I went, "Don't be ridiculous. We're not that big, and or we could do with a sales rep." And I said, really? And then now we've got several warehouse managers, and we've got several sales reps, and um, and you do have to open, you know, uh, you break through ceilings in business,
Mhm.
and the challenge is probably to know at what stage to break through that ceiling, and
Yes.
you almost need to do it before you ever need to get there. So it's having the vision, or relying on others with your team around you that you built, and having that vision to sit down together and go, okay, what do we do next, and or
Yeah.
how do we get there? Here's if our turnover wants to get to 10 million, 15 million, 20 million, whatever it is, what tools are we going to need to help us
Yeah.
get there?
You're already, it's like act as if I am. So you're already being the business you need to be at 20 million when you're still at 15 or 17, but you're
Yeah,
getting there ahead of time.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And you can't just go out either and acquire sales, and suddenly you as potentially we could, you could add several million more onto your turnover. But I have a big thing in the belief that you got to have your own capabilities. That everything. I remember when I used to be managing director for a Spanish company, and they I used to fall out because they wanted me to have more reps on the road, and I
Hmm.
used to say, We're not ready. We're not good enough yet to
Hmm.
bring those guys on the road to knock doors to bring in extra business. We need to sort out the business was creaking at that stage. You need to
Yes.
fix the flaws first, and then
Yeah, and then turn
what
on the sales.
exactly? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, that makes a lot of sense. So John, what's I mean, you're at the forefront of data centers, and what's the next 5 years look like for you guys strategy wise? What are the challenges moving ahead that you see?
Well, there's always every day's a battle. There's always a battle somewhere, but the business is evolving. For us, on the old side of the business, it's actually getting young labor that's interested in climbing into furnaces, and we would now be do a lot of biomass work, but getting young guys to come through that would show an interest in that is very, very difficult to get labor. On the rest of the business, again, aging workforce, young guys trying to get the right ones to come in and work in commercial flue systems, who want to then travel Europe and stay in hotels and stay away from their family, can be difficult as well. So I mean, other challenges is obviously even. So we took over a business in Dublin a number of years ago, and closed them down, moved them to Belfast, but all their product comes out of China. In fact, I'm only back a couple of weeks ago after spending 10 days out there, and they're all sitting on tender hooks worrying about if Trump gets into power. So, and
Hmm.
and that would mean there'd be possibly 25%
Hmm.
increase in import duties into the States.
Yeah.
So and see how that's going to affect us. And again, there could be positives there, because maybe the Chinese may look at us as a better market rather than
Yeah.
currently it is America. So strategically, it could play into our hands, but it's I, gue- and I guess the other side to it is that with Trump there, he could a lot of the industries that we're working in within Ireland could now be pulled back and repositioned in America as well, which
So
could be problematic.
it's one there's a theme through everything you've talked about there, John, is is the macro side of things. You know, the things that just happen outside of your control, but it's how you've dealt with them. And I'm just wondering, like, you know, at what point, like, if you've got somebody who's quite a small business, maybe one, two, three, or even 10 people in it, up to a much bigger business, at what point does that macro sort of economic trend come into play more than the sort of the micro stuff that's within their control, you know, more locally, or should they always have an eye on what's happening around the world to see how it's going to affect them?
We always say sometimes the things that are out of your control. There's nothing you can do about that. So
Yeah,
uh, probably the smaller the business, the more you then. I mean, at one stage, I think we were down to about 4 people, and that was the size of the business. Now we're over 40. So and I guess you just focus on the things you can control,
yeah.
and just deal with that.
Learn to dance on the moving carpet instead of having the rug pulled out from under you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you could sort of sit there and spend a lot of time thinking about things that are policies and whatever's happening in the world, but especially when you're a small business, focus on the things that are going to help improve your business to and your relationship with your clients, your customers, and you don't need to get too carried away on who the president of the United States are when you've got four
Yeah,
people. Yeah.
fair enough. So look, one last question to follow up, finish off. I always like to finish on this one. Um, if you could go back in time and speak to an 18-year-old John, what's the one piece of advice you would give him?
Haha. Um, Good question. Um, I think there's a number of things. One is just don't just don't wait until it's too late. When you're under pressure and things aren't going right, you're always looking for other things. Don't assume the business will always stay the way it is and the way it was. Um, I would say without a doubt, surround yourself. Our business changed dramatically, not because what necessarily I've done, but the people around me and the input that they've had. So embrace those people. Make sure you bring people in that, well, as we say sometimes, are smarter than you or better than you,
Yeah,
and get their buy-in. And again, we haven't been afraid to offer directorships and shareholdings to some of our team to encourage them to stay and stay really a long-term strategy within the business. And if you do have the wrong people, get them out as quickly as you can. And
yeah,
that to me is one of the biggest things. If your gut tells you somebody isn't right for your business,
they're
just
not right.
even they're not right. Just get them out the door, and should it even cost you money, just get them out the door.
John, listen, I really appreciate you coming on sharing your story. But actually, I'd love to hear more. Maybe we could explore that and set something up to do that. Biggest thing I'm taking away is always have a chair when the music stops. Don't just assume it's always going to be there. And look, thank you so much for sharing that with us. I can't wait to share it with everybody else.
Okay, thanks, Scott.